Yeah.
All right, we're live. We're Masculine Geek, episode 5, I think.
You'd be
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, we're on 5 already, which is kind of cool. We're
Aaron
doing.
might join later.
He may join later, and Jarrett may jump in as well. We'll see. But you have the main core three: Rob, TJ, and myself. It is now officially 9:01 p.m. on Wednesday evening. Well, at least Eastern time. So, does anyone have anything geeky they want to talk about that they've been working on? Anything that they want to share?
Well, since we were talking about it, we can chat a little. I'm interested in hearing you guys talk about ham radios because I have.
Oh, yeah.
For our dear listeners, we were discussing the use of ham radios. If you've seen the movie Frequency, which was a fantastic film that came out in '99 with Jim Caviezel and Dennis Quaid, and it's a hobby I'm interested in getting into soon rather than later, and there's a variety of reasons for that. But maybe Rob, you might want to chat about that.
Well, when I was younger, and this was something Vincent can relate to as well, I used to have a CB radio in my car, and I also had a base station CB radio in my parents' house. And I used to talk to people all over the valley where I live, and it would piss off the neighbors something fierce because where the antenna was and where this base station was, it actually would interfere with their television back in the day. And to the point where the neighbors even like came over and kind of complained about it and was like, yeah, we hear you're on your CB and, and it's interfering with our TV when we're trying to watch whatever.
How bad was the bleed over?
From what they said it was pretty bad. But the thing is, the base station, I had bought it secondhand from a guy who was a big electronics guy, big into amping them up and doing all kinds of things. But I also knew this guy would take whatever store-bought equipment, tweak it, and get it as powerful as he could legally get it before he would actually get in trouble.
Wow.
And the base station I had bought, that's exactly where it was. It was like right at the limit of what was legal. If it had been a little more powerful, I actually could have gotten in trouble like with the FCC or something because it was too powerful.
Gotcha.
And I had told this guy this, that I was like, look, you got a problem with it. Take it up with the cops, call the FCC, do what you got to do. I know I'm within legal limits and it's not my problem. It's yours. And he knew it because he also knew that if he did contact someone, they might come out and check out my equipment to make sure that it was on the up and up. And when it was, they'd turn around and tell him, well, you either deal with it or you buy like a little filter down at Radio Shack that you attach to your television, which would filter out the CB frequency, so then there wouldn't be any bleed over. And that was the very beginning for me of wanting to be on, or, wanting to get involved in radio itself. Then we were talking before we went live. TJ mentioned the movie Red Dawn and talked about how when the Russians had occupied part of America, there was this Radio Free America where they were broadcasting to people who were in occupied territory. I remember that as a kid or a young man watching that thinking, I hope this never happens, but if it did, this is pretty cool what they've got going on. My love affair for radio then went to a movie. God, I'm trying to remember the name of it now. Pump Up the Volume with Christian Slater. He had a pirate radio station that he was running out of his basement. And if I recall right, I believe it was a ham radio, but he was running it kind of like we do either a non-commercial radio station or a commercial radio station. He'd play music, and he was this high school kid, which kind of funny when you look at him as the actor. He looked older, and he, technically was older than 18. I want to say Christian Slater was probably in his late 20s when he did this film. But it started off with him just kind of, he was this kind of outcast new kid to this high school that was uber preppy and uber popular. Everyone was very cliquey and everyone had their little niche and their little crowd, and he had nobody. And he would get on to this radio station at night in his basement and basically bitch about the students and bitch about the administration. He was cursing and carrying on and whatnot, making fun of the principal and other people. And it kind of escalated to where he started getting involved into some issues that were going on in the school that were actually kind of big. And by the time you get close to the end of the movie, the administration's trying to figure out who he is because he was using a voice modulator, so you couldn't recognize his voice. And they had called in the FCC, and they were trying to triangulate his station. And he ultimately ended up taking his base station and connecting it to a Jeep and was driving around. Well, he had someone driving while he was doing all the talking about all these different things that were going on. And people, even back then, this movie came out like in either 1990 or 1991. But even back then, it was on a school level versus a much larger either state level or cultural, societal level that we're seeing today. But they were trying to shut him down. They were trying to shut him up. And that led me to, saying, what if I got into something like that? And ham radio back in the day, you had to be pretty savvy, and you had to know Morse code and a bunch of other stuff, even to get I believe it's the intro level license is called the technician license. Well, they've changed all that in the last few years because one of the motorcycle clubs I was in here a couple years back, one of the guys, the sergeant at arms, actually had gone out and got his technician's license and told me, oh, dude, you don't need to know Morse code anymore, and you don't need to have all this and that. Basically, it's like a multiple choice test. It's real easy.
Well, Morse code's been deprecated too, so.
Right.
Yeah.
But for the longest time for ham radio, that was one of the prerequisites in order to get even your technician licenses. You had to know Morse code.
Gotcha.
And he was telling me, because I said that to him, I was like, oh, so do you know Morse code? And he's like, oh no, dude, I beyond a couple simple things, no. He's like, that's not a requirement anymore. And I don't remember what he told me for the cost of the license, but it's very affordable from what I understand. And for the smaller handheld ham radios that, you can buy them on Amazon. I was looking at one just the other day, as a matter of fact, like a few days ago. There was one that had some really high reviews. People were raving over it, saying how great it was. And it was like $62 for the handset, for this handheld ham radio that, if you've got a good line of sight, you're looking at miles and miles of being able to talk to people. And it got me thinking, and with things that have been going on lately, the last, especially, within this last year, even up to current times, with our whole social cultural thing that's going on with the narrative, and you're seeing people with unpopular opinions getting squashed and getting silenced. Alex Jones got depersoned, deplatformed. There's other guys, some of the MGTOW guys got demonetized, and I've talked about this on my blog, and I think I might have even done a video in the past about this. I definitely know I wrote about it, where I do believe if the culture keeps going the direction it's going, it's just a matter of time before, like, even us, that, here we are, we're talking about masculinity. Well, that's bad now. And it's just going to be a matter of time before somebody comes and shuts us down, because all the big platforms, whether they believe in the narrative or not, they're looking at advertising dollars. They don't want to lose advertisers, and so they're going to pander to them. And so if they get enough people griping and advertisers start backing off, that's when you get shut down. And I honestly think it's just a matter of time before anything that's pro-masculinity, anything that's considered red pill, I think it's a matter of time before they're going to get shut down.
Right. I absolutely agree. That's why I think I think it was the American Psychology Association, or their
Yes.
guidelines of masculinity. I think that that's why it drew such a sharp rebuke from so many different groups, is because they understand that they know where this is going to go.
Oh yeah, it's gonna, if it keeps going the way it's going, where they're getting ready to classify traditional masculinity with the guidelines they've got set up, they're making it out to be a disorder, a mental disorder. It's going to come to a point that what is the next step after a mental disorder? It's criminal is what it is. It's you could actually be charged with a crime for being masculine. That's the
Well,
next step.
I would say it's also used the same way that people use the SBLC's hate list, meaning they hate the list of people, not necessarily commenting on the character or virtue of the groups that they list, but it's okay to do bad things to these people. It's okay to do things that to other people would be wrong, but it's okay to do to them because they're on the right list.
Correct.
So they're on
Yeah.
they are on the verboten list. I was watching. I have a book that was written by a guy who was in Germany during the 30s, and he got to tour their schools and all that stuff. And they had a verboten list when a child was born of the number of the names that they could give it, right? So you could only you couldn't name your child certain types of things. Well, it's the same thing. What we're seeing here is there's a verboten list of masculine qualities, and so anything that's promoting that stuff is going to get it will be acceptable for people to corporately censor them, and it's I think you're right that we're going to be headed to that point, and that's why ham radio and a lot of these other traditional hobbies are going to be very useful.
Well, yeah, try as long as you're still within the legalities of what the FCC says you can and can't do. So you have to have your license, because I know the ham guys that are out there, they're watchdogs as far as like pirate radio stations. They guard their licenses and their use of the airwaves very jealously. And so, but as long as you have your license, you're doing the call sign every hour type of thing that's required by FCC, you can, for the most part, you can pretty much talk about whatever you want. And so, yeah, good luck in having one of these SJW groups try and silence you, considering it's the airwaves now. It's not some platform on the internet.
Right. And it's much harder. And I'm not trying to plug my own book, but
please do.
Go ahead. Yeah.
This is exactly why I wrote The Stringers. It's the first book in the series, because I was trying to think of what do you do when you government has completely taken over the internet, if censorship occurs, whatever. And I was thinking about how if someone uses retro technology, how that protects them from this kind of stuff, because that's not where people are going to be looking, and it's much harder to censor. Like you were saying, it's much harder to censor people who are on the radio waves, as opposed to they're on YouTube. Well, you just a click of a button, it's over. And kind of like what we saw with Vox Day with his books on Amazon. Now they've been restored, but at the same time, how hard was it to completely remove that stuff? So it's much harder to deal with if you go back to using retro technology. And also I think one of the things that the advantage to that is people would say, well, it's going to be for a limited audience. Well, you know what? Our audience is going to be limited. It's going to be people who are who accept and understand what's going on and want to hear the truth, or hear at least what we have to say. And so, and also the ability to communicate, because what I see happening is, now social media outlets see us as a consumer, obviously not a customer unless you pay.
Right.
But what we're going to see that's going to change is you can't just sign up anymore. They're going to have having a social media content producing account. They're going to treat it like the way that they want to treat buying a gun. You got to go through this training process. You got to sign all these forms. You got to be.
You got to get a license.
They're going to want you.
Rob
to get
and I
a
were
license.
just talking about that the other day. The hoops you have to jump through.
Right. They're going to want to license everything.
Yep.
And so that they can. I mean, this is not necessarily germane to masculine geek, but this is the whole problem with marriage licenses, is that that I see becoming a huge problem in the future, is that a marriage license is not a contract. A license is something that you have to earn from the government.
Yeah, it's a privilege.
And they can revoke. And they can also change the requirements, right? They can change driver's license requirements and force you to have to renew because your license expires. Now, that doesn't apply with marriage licenses necessarily, but anything where that they're going to want, at the very least, they're going to, you apply for a content producing account, they're going to request stuff.
Oh, they already do. I mean, most type of platforms, like think about like PayPal, for example. If you really want to unlock the full potential of PayPal, you have to give them your bank account. And they can go in and not only potentially freeze whatever you have in PayPal, because I've seen that happen to guys that have been deplatformed, but they can potentially put a freeze on your actual bank account, just like the feds can. If you're brought under criminal indictment for embezzlement or something of that nature, they can freeze your funds.
Now, let me I want to make sure I understood what you just said. If PayPal can freeze your bank account or just your account on PayPal?
It can't freeze your personal bank account, but it can freeze the transfer of money from your PayPal to your personal.
Okay, gotcha.
Right.
See,
Yeah, it doesn't
so
have,
if you have
well,
very
Rob
little
is-
money in your personal account and you're kind of, you know, like a lot of these entrepreneurial type of guys that are using PayPal, they're, you know, I don't know how frequently they're transferring money from their, say, their PayPal over to their main bank account. I don't know if they're doing it daily or if they're doing it, you know, once a week, because you want to leave a certain amount there for chargebacks and whatever else comes up, disputes. But if they're, you know, like anyone, they've got their bank account and they've got $50 in it, but they've got 10 grand in their PayPal and they need 8,000 of it to live off of, but they got to keep it in there for disputes, chargebacks, you name it. And then PayPal freezes it. These guys are fucked. They're royally screwed at that point until they work out whatever it is. I've seen it happen. There's been guys on Twitter who've talked about it where, you know, they're trying to pay their advertising bills. They're trying to do this, trying to do that to grow their business, do whatever they got to do. And because of a lot of weird activity or whatever, PayPal shuts them down until they look into it to see what's going on. And they're even trying to tell these, you know, other entrepreneurial or would-be entrepreneurial guys, hey, heads up, you know, here's what PayPal did to me. And, you know, anytime you freeze someone's money, you're definitely, you know, you're putting a stranglehold on them. And for some, you know, you know, I'm not thinking about guys living at home and doing it as a side business or whatever. I'm thinking about businesses that this is their lifeblood. It's like you can kill that business in a couple of days doing something like that.
Right. And that's what they'll do. And what's
Yeah.
really frustrating is people who don't see five feet ahead of where things are going, because you always got to look at how much further something like that's going to go. So that's why I see the advantage of learning how to do ham radio. Like I said, I have a handheld one, and it's what do you set up so that it picks up the local weather and like emergency broadcast or something like that. But I probably want a regular one, and you know, set it up so that at some point, I mean, it'll probably be sometime in the near future, but I mean, if things go a certain direction in the country, it'll be like an Amazon next day order, open the manual, get my license within a week or however quickly as possible, and start.
Well, you can buy the transmitter receiver, where I was saying like the one for $62. You can buy that right now. You just can't transmit on it legally until you have your license, but you can listen on it. You can use it as just like a scanner receiver. So if you're serious about doing it, I'd say buy it sooner than later. You know, buy it now while you can before you know, because maybe other people get the same idea if things keep going the way they're going, and then all of a sudden now there's none available because people went on a run for them. So I'd say get one now and then get your license, you know, whenever you want to do that.
Right. I mean, did you, how long has it been since you've used the ham radio?
I don't have my technician license. I haven't bought the actual radio yet. Just because of the way things have been going, my interest in it has been reignited. So I know I'm probably going to be picking one up here within probably the next month or so. And then after that, it's just getting on, going to, there's links all over the place that point you to where you apply to get your license and where to study. You can get the study guide online so that you can take the test, and then however long it takes for the FCC to process it and then mail you your license, and then you're good to go. Gotcha. So that's something I'm going to be doing here in the very near future. I'll probably have that in the works, like I said, in a couple of months at the latest. And probably by summer, I'll be set up as far as if I want to use one, I'll have it and talk to whomever, just play around with it, and then figure out what do I need to do to boost the signal, so to speak.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I mean that might be the way we'll be. It might be the way for people to communicate. I mean, this is. I don't think utilities would ever become a problem, but I think that pretty much anything outside of utilities, like phones, water, sewage, electricity, everything else, just assume that it can be shut down if they don't like what to say. Just assume that and have contingency. Oh, speaking of which, I was going to say, I just realized this. Let's say you have a cell phone, you want to get a new one, right? Mm-hmm. Your old cell phone's radio will still work, even when it's been deactivated and all that other stuff. So
you mean like you could make 911 calls on an old deactivated phone, right? Is that what you mean?
More of what I meant was if you go turn it on to the radio, you can still listen to stuff on the radio.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. I had no idea about that.
Yeah. So I always have like an emergency radio or whatever in my car or my emergency pack. So I figured why not just put a phone in there?
Yeah.
Because it's a lot lighter and it's got obviously the battery doesn't last forever, but it'll last for a long time if you've got it on the right. Excuse me. If you have it on if you're using it right, it can last a while, but it's always a backup.
Sure.
But
no, it's a good idea. I never knew that. I knew you could have a cell phone that wasn't activated or was deactivated, that if you still needed to make emergency calls, you could still do that. But I had no idea that you could actually use it as a radio. That's news to me, so that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just good. Like if you had to go somewhere and you forgot your phone, or you just more importantly, if your phone stops working, like the satellite goes down or whatever, you can still use the radio in the phone to pick up whatever stations are available, or if there's an emergency broadcast or something like that. We're kind of moving over into the prepper topics, but I'm always
hey, it's part of being a geek, man. Prepping is kind of one of the areas I go into, so yeah,
I guess we can talk about that. I've always been trying to figure out what the fascination is. I mean, I've never been a prepper in any sort of serious sense. I mean, you go to a gun show and you meet real preppers. Like they're almost an ethnic group in terms of how distinct they are. Yep. Because it's got a narrative. The system's going to collapse. It's going to collapse any day now. Here's all the stuff you're going to need. And here's all the conspiracies that we believe as well. And my whole thought is, why do, particularly, I think men, I mean, I follow two prepper writers who are females, but I'm wondering, what is it with men that they enjoy talking about that and thinking about it and speculating about it? And I think one of it is we are bored with modern life. Modern life is boring, and it doesn't utilize some of our talents or
exactly. It's a chance for us.
We have no need to defend the perimeter anymore.
Right.
Yeah, it's a chance for us to push ourselves to excel. I mean, guys are driven like that. I mean, not to say that women cannot be, but fundamentally, they don't give a shit about that. They really don't.
Yeah.
And when you talk about this, it's always, oh, well, you're sexist, you're misogynist, and you shut the fuck up. No, it's like, I'll give you an example. And I may have mentioned this before, and I've gone to different borders in the area around me, and I walk in and I see either a knitting club or a book club. And the book club, you may get a few guys. The knitting club, there's no guys. Now, am I going to walk up to them and say, you know what? You ladies are misandrists. There's no fucking guys here. What is your problem? This is sexist, and I'm going to complain. I'm going to write a letter. I'm going to do something. I'm going to pick it. I'm going to put a purple dick hat on my head. What the issue is, guys don't give a shit about that. And it even goes further than that, is we don't complain about it. We just don't care. We're not going to do that because it doesn't interest us. It doesn't mean just because there's a statistical disparity in the group, doesn't mean it's sexist or racist or misogynist or whatever ist or ism you want to put on it because you're jealous or envious or pissed off. And that's the same thing with this. It's like, I've yet to see a guy in a knitting club at Barnes & Noble because he doesn't fucking care. He could probably join if he wanted to, but he doesn't care. It's not, that doesn't interest him. It's the same thing with the preppers and the zombie apocalypse dudes. It's a chance to compete. There's sort of you just like doing it. It's just the way it is.
I think it's because it really appeals to a primal instinct that men have, to where we feel like, almost like it's as though we feel like we're truly alive when we are removed from civilization. And when I say civilization, I mean removed from technological infrastructures that allow us to be less than the what we are.
Well, it's what Teddy Roosevelt was talking about, making you making you soft. It's easy. You're comfortable. You're not. You get lazy. You get lethargic. You get fat. You get slow. You're not for anything. Your mind slows down.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's just it's a whole cascade of crap that just takes over your life. Now, I'm not saying you don't have to go. Obviously, you don't have to go out and do that. You don't have to hunt, because all these things don't make you masculine. Like, it's like, okay, I want to be masculine, so I'm going to go smoke cigars, ride motorcycles, and shoot guns. No, that's not it. It's realizing that you have this core set of traits about you and honoring that, and those other things are just a byproduct of it. Right. If that makes any sense. Because a lot of people are going to, like, and I'll play devil's advocate. Oh, masculinity, masculine geek, blah, blah. Doing all these things doesn't make you masculine, doesn't make you a man. Well, you're right. It doesn't. These are just things that are byproducts of that. It's what you guys were, it speaks to what you were talking about, the wanting to get out and stretch yourself and push yourself and using that nature to bring out that core, that masculine core that every man has. We all have it.
Well, it's
we just
testing
don't
your
honor
own
it.
boundaries.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Right. I think a part of it also is it just appeals to I'm trying to think in what sense that men see that kind of thing and get excited, because those situations, I think what it is men have a sense of assertiveness and masculine energy and action-oriented behavior, and so much of modern civilization is about them holding themselves back.
Exactly. That's like the title of this episode, Masculine Edge. And every man needs to be, he has it. You're just speaking of this now, TJ. And you're right. He holds that masculine edge back. And that's a shame for society. It's a shame for women.
And we don't have, and I think the key thing is we have very few outlets, if any, for them to channel that energy and that assertiveness into, that is either healthy or is masculine.
Exactly.
And so I think that is a cause of a lot of frustration among men. And I almost wonder if that's also part of the whole midlife crisis type thing for, I mean, I know that's supposed to happen to a guy when he's, midlife or He's in his middle age and he's married and all, and got a house in the burbs and all that stuff. But I think part of it is he's getting older and he's probably looking back on his youth and thinking, what did I do that
Exactly.
really utilized? Here's an example of just me. One of the things I really want to do is go on a very, very long hike, go hike minimalistically. And that's why I also really envy Dick Prenicky, the guy who built that cabin out in the woods in Alaska and lived there. Now, granted, you know, not everybody wants to go live by themselves for 30 years, but I think he was able to he was free of like restrictions that we sense and we're aware of, but we can't pinpoint them exactly. It's almost like an environment.
I know for me, going off of, what is my, to back up just a tiny bit with what TJ first started talking about, like what is the fascination with all of this? I've always been fascinated with preppers and apocalypse and all that kind of stuff. And the short answer for me has always been, well, if society collapsed, and God knows what that would ultimately look like until it happens. We have no real idea. We have our little fantasies in our head of what it would be. But two things I know for me in my life, that if government collapsed and society experienced some kind of a real true full collapse, two things for me I know would happen. Number one, I wouldn't have to pay taxes anymore, because fuck that. Because there's no government to come and get them. We're talking chaos. We're talking, police force, all those kind of things, all these public services. The majority of them would break down entirely. So there'd be no more paying taxes, at least for a little while. The other one for me, and this is a big one, and it kind of goes with the whole masculine edge idea, and with what a lot of these guys, like this guy you're talking about that went out and lived in the woods for 30 years, to sum it up in a very short sentence, don't tell me what to do. I'm going to do my thing, whatever that thing is. Don't fucking tell me what to do. And I think that's one of the things that guys today, where they don't have that masculine edge, is it's not only about that they're not being tested or they haven't tested themselves, but a lot of the things where TJ was mentioning, that we don't really have any healthy outlets. I want to expand that just a little further, TJ. It's not only do we not necessarily have a lot of healthy outlets, we have very few truly masculine edged, socially approved outlets.
Well, there's no men's space anymore.
Right. It's all been taken over by women, and we've allowed it.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where anytime a group of men are getting together, it's what they're plotting against women. They're twisting their mustache, sitting back, smoking their cigars and plotting the demise and ruin of women, or they're gay. It's fucking unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And I'm going to go even further. Have you seen in the news this thing about the Girl Scouts now?
Yeah.
I wanted to shit myself.
What's going on? I haven't paid attention. What's up now? This
has been going on for a while, that the Boy Scouts have
they've brought the girls in.
Well, they have their spines on layaway. Their balls haven't dropped. What? They've let the girls in, and I think there's
right. And they changed their name. They're no longer the Boy Scouts. They're just the Scouts of America. I know about that.
Exactly. And then there was I forget what local radio station, or maybe it was even CNN with their bullshit. They had an article up in regard to the first scout, the all-girl scout. I think all-girl scout troop.
Yeah, all-girl scout troop.
Yeah, I mean, you already have a Girl Scout troop. I don't. What?
Yeah, why do you need to be part of the Boy Scouts?
Yeah, well, we know why.
Well, yeah, because boys are bad and they need to be supervised. That's why women need to invade male space, is so that they can keep an eye on the guys. Like you say, otherwise we're smoking cigars and plotting the end of women's regime type of thing. Oh, wait, that's kind of what we're doing here. Oh, shh, guys, don't let the girls know.
Rob, I actually think that it's not necessarily as nefarious as that, but it's related. What it is that the Boy Scout, and I say this as an Eagle Scout, being an Eagle Scout, it was, I say, and I
was, yeah, there's the key
was
word.
a very prestigious award. It took a lot of time and energy and effort to get it. It was a big deal. It was something you put on your resume. It was, you got letters from presidents, from senators, from governors.
It was no joke.
Right. And so Girl Scouts did not offer anything like that because obviously Girl Scouts was just, it was, I'm not, and I want to say, Girl Scouts were not sissies back in the 70s. I have relatives who were in Girl Scouts.
No. Yeah, not at all.
They did stuff, but they also had problems back then, if you know what I mean. Well,
it devolved to them just selling fucking cookies.
But I think what happened is, here's the thing. People speculating. I have no evidence, is my gut. I think the parents wanted their daughters to have that same type of thing to put on their resume for their careers, and they're not going to get it in Girl Scouts. So you go put your daughter in Boy Scouts, let her earn the Eagle Scout Award, and then she can put that on her resume. Or they've got, daughter and son, and they think that they're too lazy to go drop one off at Girl Scouts and one at Boy Scouts. I think the other part of it is, I think it really comes down to masculine pride. That the Eagle Scout Award was a sign of masculine pride. It was a definitively masculine award. Now it's there. I mean, and they were already, and I'm not going to blame it. I'm not blaming women, and I'm not blaming girls for all this
No,
stuff.
not at all.
Eagle Scout Award was being diluted the moment it became a kind of a corporate, like, if you want to get a good job, you have this on your resume, and it'll get in, as opposed to just being an award.
And that started around the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah. It got a little out of control, but Rob, you really hit it on the head just before. You were saying there's no opportunities for men to prove themselves. And I think that's the angst, is that, and the American Psychology Association morons completely just miss the point on that, is that boys do feel the need to prove themselves and prove that they're men, because masculinity has to be earned. Right. And so that's the fundamental difference between women and men, is that men have to earn their value. Again, men
are made, women are born.
Right. People can get angry all they want, but the reality is that you can have a 21-year-old, absolutely stunning, gorgeous, beautiful, blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman who just doesn't know anything.
All she has to do is just show up.
Well, no, I'm just saying, if she's nice and if she's just polite and sweet, that's it. That's all she's ever going to have to do.
Yep.
Whereas a man, and there's no one's going to look at it. Like, do you understand? I think this is a point that somebody made. He goes, if someone was to call a girl a loser, it has no sting, because it doesn't mean anything to that. Like, what do you mean? As if that idea of not accomplishing something doesn't mean anything.
Well, if you called her, if you disparage her personality, or even better yet, her looks, then you would sting her.
Right.
Yeah. Or if assuming she's a heterosexual woman, calling her a loser because she can't get no man, that would sting. And that does go back to the beauty and all of that you just barely mentioned. But as far as what her job accomplishments or her school accomplishments, her academic credentials or anything of that nature, that doesn't mean a hill of shit to nobody.
The thing is, they wouldn't call her, if they were saying she couldn't get a man, they wouldn't call her a loser. They would say she's weird, awkward. They would come up with all the girls, mainly. Girls would say stuff, because boys wouldn't necessarily say it to her. They just wouldn't ask her out. But I guess the point is that the boys, that's the other thing, is that Boy Scouts helped men or boys kind of have some sort of initiation into manhood.
Exactly. They did. It was a rite of passage.
Yeah. And I always, I've been hearing this more and more from even supposedly right-wing lemmings, NPCs, who are like, well, gender has always been, masculinity has always had a fluid concept. And I was thinking, okay, I don't.
Let me back it up there. I think we need to clarify something, because gender, I'm sorry, and this is another thing that pisses me off. Gender's not fluid. Your fucking preference is fluid. your desire, your preference, that might be fluid.
Yeah, your
fact that
sexual
you're-
preference is
Well,
fluid, but your gender
Yeah, I
isn't.
mean, with the exception of a few mutations, you've got a dick and balls or a fucking pussy. That's it. I'm sorry. Your preference, you could be, you identify and love toasters. I don't fucking care. But sorry, there's two.
But yeah, that doesn't make your gender a toaster.
Exactly.
I think that what the guy, because there was somebody who made a comment about he did a video on masculinity, and somebody who was responding to it goes, well, you know, masculinity has always been fluid and all this other stuff. So what they're saying is that what it means to be masculine, and what we're really getting it down to is what kind of traits, qualities, characteristics should men aspire to be, and is the basis for which we determine the measure of a man. How do we measure a man, right? So if a man's a coward, that is a measure that we use to determine his manhood. If a guy is a total coward, he's a backstabber, he's dishonest, he has no honor, right? A man who has no honor, we mark that guy because we that's a basis of which we determine a man's masculinity.
That's true. That's one of them. That's one of them. Yeah.
And what's funny is these same people who say that masculinity is fluid, what they're saying is, oh, well, nothing specifically or definitively masculine, yet they'll go around and also say that things are toxic masculinity, as if, oh, so now there is specific traits that we don't want men to be like they have a very specific, it's just a weasel word. It's a way of sidestepping an issue. And that's the fact is boys and young men, and including men, they all want to do something that proves themselves to other men, right? So Boy Scouts allows you to do that. Let's say you're kind of a geeky nerd type in Boy Scouts, and you go on a 50-mile hike. You don't complain. You never get tired. You're always going. You're very stoic. Dare I use the word stoic in a positive sense?
Careful now, you're stepping into mental disorder territory.
I know, it's unhealthy. And the kid is able to make his meals. He puts up his tent. He doesn't, and he learns all these skills and whatever. And through this 50-mile hike, he proves himself to not only the boys his age, but also the older boys
and himself as well.
And so it builds up his confidence. Yeah, that's another thing that they don't want. They don't want men to prove themselves even to themselves, because then they would have confidence. And if you have confidence, you own you can maintain frame in your life.
You're uncontrollable.
Right. They don't want men who are confident, because those men maintain frame, and those men are harder to, first of all, they're not controllable, because they go, no, this is not how it's going to be. And it's, and that's whether it's concerning a hobby or whatever else. But I think that's why we see this renewed interest in a lot of these quote unquote geek hobbies, because they're really one of the few areas where guys can go do that kind of, like, prove anything, whether it's ham radio or if it's you're getting involved in some sort of a board game or whatever. I don't know. I think
at the very least, Dungeons and Dragons, some kind of tabletop game. It could be coins. It could be stamps. Right. It could be painting mental miniatures and figurines or whatever.
Could be collecting firearms.
Right. It could be collecting firearms. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But that one's also, a mental disorder. That one's definitely an unsafe territory there if you collect guns.
Yeah,
you might actually do something with them.
Yeah, you go to the range and you practice how to shoot. You perfect
you actually learn how to become a sharpshooter. Yep.
Yeah,
you become a bullseye hitter at 100 yards.
Yeah, you perfect your marksmanship. Absolutely.
I'm kind of amazed at. I just find it amazing that people have the gall to say that masculinity, there's no specific characteristics.
Well, I mean, it doesn't surprise me, because when you say that masculinity has no specific characteristics, then it becomes fluid, as you said before. And more importantly, if it has no specific, well, not only is it meaningless, but it's to whomever chooses, especially the ones that are saying that it has no meaning or that it's fluid or it's not specific, it sets it up where they get to decide what is masculine. They get to decide This is what we consider
And
masculine,
it's
not
usually
what
something
you.
that they're,
And it's
yeah,
usually to the
something they're
detriment of a masculine man.
conventional masculinity. It's usually what
Right.
they're comfortable with and not afraid of, because most of these
Right.
people complaining about it are afraid of it.
They're afraid of it, or they want it to serve their interests.
Oh, that too. That's a
So,
good
you know,
point.
it's okay that we're defenders of the home. You know, that's the man's job.
Go crush the
Is that
spider.
when it's kill the spider, or I heard a noise, and so you got to pick up a baseball bat or pick up a gun and go walk around and, you know, and clear the house. You got to go clear room to room to make sure there's not an intruder. That has always traditionally been a man's job, and I guarantee you, I cannot imagine that there's a woman on the planet that would say, oh, no, let me do that. Just like where we had a big snow day today. Who was out shoveling all the fucking snow? It was guys in trucks and guys with shovels. I didn't see any women out doing that. And so that's okay when that's conventional masculinity, because it serves them. They
Yeah.
don't have to go out and do those jobs. They don't have to climb the power poles and clear the ice off of the power lines so that they can still get their internet
They're not
and
picking
watch
up the
Oprah.
trash. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They're
picking up
not the trash collectors.
There's
They're
no
not
plumbers.
right. You know, there's no women working in the coal mines to keep the power plants up and running so that they can watch Oprah. Okay.
Mhm.
But it's the other parts of it. It's the uncontrollable parts. It's the guy saying no, putting his foot down. It's the guy, we're going to go do this. This is what I want to do. Those are the parts they don't like as a group. You know, I mean, I really honestly think there's quite a lot of women that are down with the program, so to speak, that,
Mhm.
hell yeah, I like a masculine man. But the SJWs, I guess, they don't like that part of it, which is why they want to redefine masculinity and say that it's not specific, when in fact, yes, it is. It is specific.
Yeah.
But unless it serves their interests, keeps us being the workhorse, that, you know, we'll let you be masculine and go out and shovel the snow and get rid of the intruders. Basically, whatever it is, you'll do what I want you to do. You will serve my interests. And when you do, then you can be masculine. Then I can say, yep, you're being masculine. But if it's something that serves your interests, or as speaking for myself, it serves my interests, and it may not necessarily benefit her, even though actually it usually does, then it's whoa. Now you're toxic. You know, now we're getting into you've got that mental disorder thing.
Now you're domineering and controlling.
You're domineering and you're aggressive and yada, yada, yada. You get into all that bullshit.
I think the other thing that we've got is the men who latch onto this stuff are men who deep down inside know that they are not masculine. They know that they are not. They're not. So I mean, I think we all agree with Jack Donovan's concept of the 4 tactical virtues.
Yes.
The strength, courage, mastery, and honor.
Absolutely.
These males they're not strong physically.
Yeah, they're not men.
Strong emotionally, they're not strong psychologically, they're not strong spiritually. They're people who are they are males who are very, very, very fragile in every meaningful sense. They are not brave. They don't stand up for anything that's controversial. They always stand up for whatever is popular. They don't stand up to a woman in their life who disagrees with them on something. They defer to others because they just won't say anything. And then competency, what are they good at?
Nothing.
No, they don't know how to say no, so therefore it makes their yes completely valueless.
They may be competent in some areas. I mean, look at a lot of these. I guess I suppose you look at a lot of these programmers or guys in the tech industry who are all not all of them, but some of them can be raving SJWs. But really, what it comes down to, though, is what they really hate about masculinity is honor. Because honor is based on what other men think of you, who you care about.
Well, in addition to that, at a very base level, and this is, I think, very important to note, is masculinity is the complete opposite of strict femininity, and that's very attractive to women. So you could be geeking out in your computer programming all you want, but if you don't have a masculine edge, women love I've experienced it. Not only have I read about it and talked to guys, I've experienced it, and I've run the tests myself. women love a masculine man.
Yeah.
You don't have to be like this mouth breathing, what people go, oh, you red pill mouth breathing douche. But no, and that's not what I'm talking about. But, and you know it when you see it. It's just like, it's like pornography. What is it? You know when you see it. You know when you see it. It's like that. It's that calm, stoic, get shit done, James Bond, Cary Grant, Gary Cooper type man. Yeah, that's very, very attractive to a feminine woman. So if they're lacking that masculine edge, I guess what it comes down to is there's a spirit in guys that is, it's like almost this indomitable warrior spirit, and he also has the same indomitable spirit as a child. There's a child in him. If he doesn't balance that out, he gets too serious. He can be too aggressive. He can be too emotional, but bottle up and not channel it. Then that's where you run into a problem. But when a guy balances out that playful, mischievous, childlike part of himself with that warrior spirit, that masculinity that Jack Donovan's talking about, I'll call it almost a warrior spirit. Women fucking love that, and she'll love you. It's amazing. I've seen it. I've experienced it. So when people talk about this toxic masculinity and all this other bullshit, I laugh. I just, you know what, it rolls off my back because it's bullshit. Because the majority of it, other than being bullshit, is envy and jealousy. And I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that in my life. It's ridiculous. I refuse to fucking entertain it. Toxic masculinity, my ass. Fuck off.
I think what it also is males who've invested in that the feminist narrative of men. I mean, I think I at least was raised in some sense in this culture of, if you a masculine, it's not even about being masculine, it's about being nice. Be nice to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Don't upset anybody. Don't ever give offense. Be really, really nice to girls. If you're really nice to them and you just bend over backwards.
If you're real nice, they'll fuck you.
Yeah, but you know what? That's another thing. That's another thing too. Women like nice guys, but the problem is, guys, that's all they know how to do, because they think if they be nice and like, oh, that works the first time, that's kind of cool, that works. I'm going to keep being nice and doing all these nice things, and it exponentially increases. And the woman just like, this guy's a needy fuck.
Right.
I don't see his masculine edge. A woman needs to know within, if you're interested in her, you're not going to do this with every woman, but you still want to have your sexuality be a forefront to your introduction, and it has to be put out there. A woman that you're interested in, and she's giving you get those indicators of interest. It's one of those things where okay, the body language is there. She's interested in you. She's asking you questions. You're talking. You're engaging. It's great. If you don't let that woman know in some fashion, you don't have to be a caveman about it. I mean, you could do the whole Roger Allen Curry mode one thing, but if you don't let her know that you're interested in her sexually, over time you are going to friend zone yourself. Because you're becoming her girlfriend by being nice. And that's what a lot of guys in the geek culture don't get.
Oh, that's a lot of guys, period.
Well, we're
geek culture or not.
Well,
most of them. I'd say
Rob.
80% of guys that's what they don't get, because they were raised how they were raised, because that's how I was raised. I was raised by a single mother for the most part. Okay. My parents divorced when I was young. My dad was not really in the picture for much because he was out working his ass off to pay child support and also to take care of himself. So I was raised pretty much by my mom. And what it sums up, not to blame women, not to blame mothers. They do the best they can. They try. My mom tried. God knows she did. Okay. But what my mom tried and did instill in me for many, many years was with the idea of being nice. She wants you to be nice to her. And so then she just, as a woman, I want you to be nice to everybody, because women want harmony. Women want to get along. Women want to cooperate, where guys like to compete. And so moms are teaching their sons, when their father is absent, whether he's physically absent or he's checked out or whatever's going on there, it's falling on her to raise him as a man, which she is going to fail at because she's not a man. But she's teaching him to be nice to her, because she doesn't want any lip. She doesn't want any talk back. She doesn't want him getting assertive with her, you know, because I'm the mom. And so he takes that and figures, you know, because mom tells him, you know, because my mom told me, oh, yeah, one of these days, you know, you're going to meet a girl and, you know, you need to be nice to her. And there's no talk, at least from my parents anyway. The sex talk I ever got from my parents when I was growing up, and I actually didn't get it from either one of them until I was probably 16, 17 at the earliest. But the sex talk was the mechanics. It was the birds and the bees. It was okay, there's this, there's that. And with my mom, there wasn't even that. With hers, it was, you know, one of these days you're going to meet a girl. You know, I would hope you want to get married first. But I also know biology and hormones that, you know, that all I ask is two things from you. One, where, you know, use protection, which that was smart, not just for STDs, but even she said it back then. This is kind of where my mom was on the right track. She goes, a girl could trap you with this.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
tell you that she's on birth control and she's actually not.
Well, she said that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my mom actually said that to me at 17 years old, you know, to make sure you use a condom, and not just for STDs, but for the fact that there are women out there that will actually try to trap you. And they'll tell you they're on birth control. Don't trust them. You know, you need to make sure, you know, even if she says she's on birth control, hey, that's great. Use a condom anyway. And the other rule that she had was not in my house. You know, you want to go do that, you go do that somewhere else. You don't do it under my roof. And that was the extent of the sexual education that I got from my mother, where with my dad, it was this really kind of awkward birds and the bees approach, where it was, one of these days, son, you're going to be with a girl and you're going to kiss her, and maybe, you know, it leads to a little more, and then your dick's going to get hard, and then you're going to want to play hide the dink. Those were his words.
Jesus
Hide
Christ.
the dink. You know, he was telling me that as we were driving.
The technical terms, yes.
The technical term was hide the dink. But it was, you know, we were on our way deer hunting, as a matter of fact, when he decided to have that conversation in the truck while we were driving up the mountain. And that literally was the extent from my family as far as sexual education. I learned more about sex from Playboy and Penthouse, because this obviously was before the internet. This was before getting videos and all of that was really accessible. And so, you know, my sexual education came from other guys, and I'm sure most of them were lying, but it was other guys talking their stories of all the pussy they were getting. And, you know, and of course, skin magazines, you know, I was looking at pornography in that sense. But it's that, getting back to it, it's guys are being taught by their mothers, and to a degree, if they've got sisters, especially maybe older sisters, they're being taught, you know, because those women in their lives want to be treated nicely. They wanted to be treated with respect. And not saying that women don't, they do. But at the same time, your mom and your sister are not going to tell you what turns them on, because that's just kind of, we're getting into incest territory now. So they're not going to tell you, you know, yeah, you need to make her tingle. You know, you might get a sister if she's open-minded enough that might be honest with you if she's, you know, around your age. But your mother's not usually going to tell you, this is what you need to do to get the ladies all hot and bothered for you. Where, you know, another man who's actually good at it will tell you, this is how you get the ladies. And one of them is not being nice. Yeah, like you say, it's not being a caveman. It's not thumping them over the head. It's not forcing yourself upon them. But you do have to have where you're, you know, this whole segment's about masculine edge. I know Vincent and I briefly talked about this a few days ago. You have to seem or be a little bit dangerous, that when the woman sees you, she knows for the most part that she's safe, but that you might actually be able to do something.
Well, so that dovetails into something that I've observed and noted, is that there's a concerted effort to remove any sign of potential aggressiveness or threat of strength from a man.
Well, it goes back to the dualist model. Every man is a perpetrator. It doesn't matter who or where you are or what upbringing, you are a potential rapist.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it is. And the problem is, it's like, okay, well, what is the issue with this? What is it about men? What the women that men do that women don't, that we don't want the behavior? Oh, okay, well, they have high testosterone, and which is actually opposite. Testosterone aggression it's not quite what you think.
Testosterone poisoning.
Yeah, you people Google that up and actually check that out. I'm not going to do that for you. I'm not a librarian. So
No, I'm not their dancing monkey. They can figure that one out.
exactly, you go look that up. But so it's okay. Let's this kid that's bouncing around, that needs the rough and tumble play, that needs to be mouthy a little bit and kind of have fun and just be, a boy will just be a boy. That's what he does. He's rambunctious. He has a lot of energy. We're going to squash that because it's not like women. Girls are a little more quieter. They play in a certain fashion that's more.
They're subservient and submissive.
Well, as they get older, but if you look at play, little girls are cooperative, and they
go along to get along.
Exactly, and they want boys to do that too.
Well, the other thing is important difference is the women will. So men fight in the physical realm. Women do their combat in the psychological realm. Mm-hmm. So girls, and this is what throws off everybody, is that, there will be a group of girls hanging out with each other, seemingly having, on friendly terms, but there's psychological warfare going on because the queen bee is trying to assert herself over the rest of the girls, because she clearly
if you don't do so and so, then you're ostracized. You can't play with us. Right. Whereas a boy will be like, knock it off. If you don't stop it, I'm going to punch you.
Right. Yeah. So for the boys, I think the other thing is that it's about, I don't even think it's about the physical part. It's crushing their spirit. That's really the key thing, is to crush their spirit, so that they're almost like those. I don't know if it's apocryphal but it's just an interesting allegorical tale. Is there was this circus where an observer noted that the young elephants, the infants, had these heavy chains around their legs, right? Mm. But he noted that the old elephants had just rope. And so he asked, well, why is that? And he goes, because we put the chains on the young as soon as they're born, and after a certain amount of time, they just accept the fact that they'll never break free.
Yeah, they give up. They never try again.
Right, they never try again. So that's kind of what they want, is someone who's not going to do something. I mean, in a psychological sense, is not going to do something that's going to go against the people who are trying to control them in their lives.
Right.
And I mean, another part of this is just, this is a thought experiment. If the priorities and preferences of men were the priority of the society and culture, think of how revolutionary that would be, and how radically different that is. And what would require that to happen is men breaking free of this mindset, actually asserting themselves, right?
We would already be on Mars and beyond if that was the case. Seriously. I mean, it sounds funny, and I do say it in a little bit of kind of sarcastic jest, but at the same time, every technological wonder, every advance we've ever made as men, I mean, stop and think about it, guys. I'm assuming to one degree or another, we're all at least quasi-minimalist. We don't have a fuck ton of shit in our houses, right? Okay, we don't need to buy a lot of stuff unless what are we trying to do? Impress women. Okay, so all of our technological advances, or most of them, I mean, not saying women haven't done their part, but for the most part, women don't build societies. That's what men do. Men create, women breed, basically, and women consume. So what it comes down to is we've created all this technology, all this stuff, and really it's to impress women. It's, hey, look what I did. Check it out. It's a mating display, kind of like peacocking or the chest thumping that gorillas do, or the lion with the big mane. It's, you know, it's the peacock with the big feathers. It's, okay, I created this program, I created this app, I created fucking Angry Birds,
No,
and I'm
fuck
a
me.
multi-billionaire.
Yep.
You know, I have all the status signals going on to attract a mate. And so we do all of this. I mean, it was men, you know, and even the women, the bra hating, you know, man hating women will agree with this. Men created the bra. Now women twisted it to say, oh, well, yeah, because it, you know, it's uncomfortable and blah, blah, blah. But the reality is we created it so that it gave them comfort, ideally, and support, and it made them look better. Yeah, thank you. Okay,
Yep.
but it wasn't a woman who designed those things. It was men, for better or worse. It was a guy who did that to make a woman's life easier and better. Okay, think of dishwashers and the iron and all of the other stuff, all the stuff that, you know, Rob's a misogynist because he's talking about those things. Yeah, but if it wasn't for men, we wouldn't have fucking cell phones. We wouldn't have YouTube and webcams, and we wouldn't even be having this conversation over hundreds, if not thousands of miles. We would, you know, if women ran society, so to speak, we would probably still be back in grass huts. Okay. So, but if going back to what TJ said, if we truly as a collective whole, as men decided, you know, yeah, we like our women, but we're not going to pander to them anymore. We're not in, you know, we're not imprisoned by the pussy. And we're going to tell society as a whole, fuck off. We're going to do our thing. We would already be on Mars. In fact, I think a lot of the greatest men that would have created the technology to get to Mars would already be there, because they'd be like, fuck it, I'm starting my own colony up here. I'm tired of the bullshit going down on Earth. Okay. But we would be in Mars, and we would be beyond Mars. We, you know, and it wouldn't just be satellites going and taking pictures of Jupiter or whatever. We would have manned spacecraft that would be going out there checking that out, because God knows we would probably figure out how to hit hyperspace or light speed or something where, hey, you know, instead of taking 45, 50 years to get there, we can do it in 3. Okay. But we're kind of, you know, enslaved to the pussy, so to speak. When you think of a guy that gets domesticated, and Vince and I have talked about this a little bit about domesticity. When you get a guy and he gets domesticated, because inherently, let's be honest, guys, we are lazy. We don't, we want things to just go smoothly. We don't want any fucking problems. We just want life to work out. And that's what a problem with the nice guy is. Nice guys want to have an easy life. They just want things to go smooth. And so that's why they never say no, because they don't want to deal with the conflict that comes with no. So they give in to concessions. Okay, I'm gonna, you know, I'll move her in, and she wants to trade, you know. And we talked about this in a few episodes where TJ was talking about like his artwork, that it's like, yeah, that shit doesn't move; it stays right where it is. But if he's a typical guy. Yeah, he's saying that now, but a typical guy, okay, I'm tired of her nagging and giving me the tears and threatening to leave, so I'll just move my artwork into my office or whatever. And next thing you know, you have a fucking man cave, and you're waking up going, how did this happen? Because that's what I did. Okay, that's when I was married. That's what I did. I let her kind of take over the house to a very large degree, and wake up one day and it's like, whoa, wait a minute, where's all my stuff? You know, and it's either in one room or it's gone. And it's like, whoa, what the fuck happened here? Well, it's because I was sleeping at the wheel, because I didn't want any conflict. I just wanted to get along, to go along type of thing. And, you know, I wanted to put life on cruise control. And so that can happen, and it happens a lot easier and quicker than you think.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack from all that, but I'm just trying to think of because because we've been on a couple tangents. We were talking about the Boy Scouts, and I think, excuse me. One of the things that was important about Boy Scouts that really pertains to masculine geek is that it was an opportunity for geeky or nerdy kids to earn respect and be accepted among the other boys.
Absolutely.
And it was also an opportunity for, you could come from a poor background, your family could be rich, you could be middle class, and what mattered was, can you tie this knot? Can you start a fire? Are you adventurous? Are you able to do the hike like this? Do you know your all these different skills? Do you know how to put up the tent correctly and all this other stuff? So I think that's what's being lost, because and what's being replaced with, and this is for men, this is important, that our society does, is they've replaced actions with thoughts. So, and not like the thoughts who are on YouTube. I'm talking about like your thinking. So you can have a boy or a young man who's a completely useless loser, but he's nice and he says really nice things because he thinks correctly, right? He thinks all the right things, and he's going to make a really great husband someday. His wife will just magically be between 29 and 31, when she finds him. That is, she's been looking for him her whole life, but that she just happened to find him when she was 29. But I think that's the difference, is that today it's not about what you can do, it's about making sure you think the right thoughts. And that's why stuff doesn't get done, because a lot of these guys have thought, oh, well, if I just hold to these correct viewpoints, women will like me. And they only are doubling down on that narrative. And that's why they like this whole APA guidelines on masculinity and boys, is that, oh yeah, that guy who totally has his cool during dangerous situations, and I'm a total coward and little chicken. I find that appealing, that they're saying they're trying to make their vices a virtue, a necessity of virtue.
Yeah, it's not going to work. It's because intrinsically on a like base limbic level, women just they don't care about that.
Well, and where it's also going to fuck a guy up that thinks that way, that, oh, I'm a virtuous guy because I have these thoughts and all of that kind of thing. This is the part that concerns me the most, is because I've seen it in real life. I see a lot of guys that they decide one day to go out and get their concealed carry permit. They decide, you know what, I'm going to go buy a gun. Okay. And they know I have guns because I like my guns. I've been in occupations that required me to carry a gun. And so not only was it something I enjoyed, it was also a necessity. It was one of the tools that I had to have to do the job. So I've had a lot of different types of training with firearms all throughout my life. Well, these guys have never picked up a gun before. And we're talking guys, they're usually in their mid-20s, maybe a little older. They didn't grow up with firearms. They've never gone hunting. They've never even gone to a gun range. And so, but today's the day they're going to buy a gun and go out and get their concealed carry permit. And they're asking me, what gun would you recommend? And I'm like, well, what are your intentions? What are you planning on using it for, needing it for? Because, if you're going to go hunting, then you need either, a shotgun or you need a rifle. If you're talking personal defense or home defense, again, a shotgun would be great, a rifle in some occasions, but usually it's a handgun. And invariably it all falls back to, oh, well, it's for personal defense. And then I always ask them, well, have you ever even shot a gun? And usually the answer is no. Or it's, well, yeah, when I was like 10, my dad took me out and I shot his handgun like one time. I emptied a magazine. And it's like, okay, so, but that was your last experience. Why do you need a handgun? Do you have an occupation that requires you to carry a gun? Because if so, okay, I'll give you some recommendations based on that. Oh, no, I'm a banker, or I'm a computer programmer. Or I'm an artist. I work in I work on a computer and I do art design for some corporation. I do corporate logos. Okay, so you don't need a gun on the job. And so what part of town do you live in? You know, do you live in the bad side of town? Oh, no, I live over on the east side. Okay, well, the east side is, you know, pretty affluent. It's like, okay, crime's pretty low over there, other than maybe property crime here and there. But, you know, being robbed or mugged or murdered or something like that is very low. So it's like, so why do you want and need a handgun? Other than because you can, which I'm okay with that answer. But why all of a sudden after all these years now you want to get a gun? And invariably, you know, I get a gamut of answers, but really what it comes down to is, well, because it would be cool. And it's like, okay, so you're going to be the guy that you're going to go out, you're going to buy this gun, whatever gun that I recommend or someone else recommends or something you saw in a movie or on TV. You're going to go out and buy this gun. You're going to go down to the range and you're going to shoot it a handful of times. Part of it, if you are actually going to get your concealed carry permit, you have to do that. So you're going to at least go through at least one magazine there. And then what's going to happen is you're going to put that gun up and you're probably not going to touch it again until you fucking need it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you need it is going to be the worst time ever because you haven't practiced, you haven't trained, you haven't developed the mindset, because there is a mindset with owning a firearm that it's like, I've asked these guys, you willing to take a life? Are you willing to kill somebody? Because in essence, that's what you're saying with being a concealed carry holder, is that I am willing to take your life, and I'm able to. I am capable of doing this. And they always pause, and I'm like, right there, you're dead. If I was the bad guy and I was coming after you and you hesitated, I'm either pulling my own gun and putting you down with my weapon, or I'm taking yours from you and using it against you.
Yeah.
And that's what I see happening with, you know, a lot of these guys. That's the thing that I guess I fear for males, men in general, is they have the thoughts that, oh, I'm a warrior because they've lowered the bar to fit their standard. And so, well, I you know, if you're a masculine guy, that means you own a gun. And so they go out and buy a gun, but they never train with that gun. And then something happens where, guess what? You actually need your gun, and either they left it home. So, well, you know, you might as well have never bought the gun.
Yeah. Or they wind up hurting themselves.
Yeah.
Or
They either hurt
others.
themselves or someone else, or they end up getting killed.
Yep.
You know, because they come up against someone that either gets the drop on them or is bigger, better, and badder than they are. But they have this false sense of security and bravado that, you know, because I had the thought, then I can do the deed. And then when it comes time, you know, the moment of truth arrives, they're the ones in a body bag, or they're the ones seriously injured, or someone they care about is the one that's in a body bag or seriously injured. And it's because they had the wrong thoughts, but they thought they had the right ones.
A little bit of magical thinking.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. That's true.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, I'm like dying over here. I
knew the feeling. I knew the feeling.
So I'm the only non-sick one here tonight.
You are, yes. I'm still coughing. Shit.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's crazy because apparently I was just checking the weather. There's supposed to be the biggest snowstorm in 22 years potentially coming this way.
Oh,
and
is it coming from the east for you? Because right now Salt Lake is buried. Like this is where I'm sitting in it right now. You know, I'm looking out the window. We had a snow day today. My work called us up and said, "Don't bother coming in because the roads
I saw
were
that
so
on your
bad."
Twitter feed.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I actually had made it into work. I left like 45 minutes early and got there like with 10 minutes to spare. And normally my commute's like 10 minutes. It took me almost 40 minutes to get to work because the roads were so bad. But I made it there, but I was just waiting to go in and punch in. And then my boss calls me up and he's like, yeah, we're having a snow day. So, you know, go home. If you're there, go ahead and go home. And so, you know, I had to take another 40 minutes to get back home. But it's been one of the worst that I've seen in probably at least a decade.
Wow. How many?
So I'm wondering if that's the one that's heading to TJ. I wonder if it's heading from the east. Yeah,
it's I'd have to check the weather blog again, but anyways, I think it's as far as being masculine geek is concerned, I think that we're at a really weird point where, in a lot of ways, geek culture is one of the few places left for men. But I don't know. I think that that's what's interesting also is that it's not the most masculine places for men.
Oh, not at all.
But a lot of the traditional places, like even hunting, used to be used. I mean, it's still. I think the problem is that it's not whether or not it's dominated by men. It's the culture and atmosphere. And
is it approved?
Right. And so it's sort of like, let's say you have a sports team, and the question is who's setting the tone for the culture and the environment of that hobby, interest, or that group that you're with. Because if you can have a group of men, but if you have somebody who's in charge who's just policing all your thoughts, they're censoring what you're saying, you could get in trouble for what you're saying or whatever. You can't act like a man around other men. And it really doesn't matter that it's 95% or 100% men. And I think that that's the other advantage for why they want to crush men's spirits in this APA masculine thing. They want men to police other men.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's why the white knights are so quote unquote popular, because that's all really, when you think of white knighting, besides virtue signaling, what are they doing? They're usually shaming and chastising other men for being men. You shouldn't be saying that about women, and you shouldn't be saying that to a woman. I used to belong to some groups on Facebook where women sometimes would like post pictures, and next thing you know, inevitably there would be some guy who would jump on there and be like, "Okay, guys, you need to make sure that everything you say is positive. These women are taking a risk exposing themselves and blah, blah, blah." And I would invariably jump on there and go, "Okay, white knight, these women are adults. And if they want to, I think they can handle the criticism if there's going to be some. They know what the score is. Why don't you just shut up?"
It's amazing that I've had similar experiences on online groups where that same thing happens. Is you've got Milady, you got the white knight.
Oh yeah.
And it's, then the masculine man is the misogynistic dragon who needs to be slayed by the guy carrying the girl's
white knight.
Yeah, exactly.
The pin hat or whatever. Aaron
Oh, good. Yeah, and it's
the keyboard warrior.
I think
pretty much.
It gets frustrating because I think that that's the other. To go back to the doom and gloom, the big crash, the Red Dawn scenario, I think with those situations, another thing that men find attractive and appealing about it is that it allows them to, because today we deal with and we have to discuss things that are just utterly trivial and stupid. Whereas when you're in a life and death situation, you get to cut out all the bull. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, in a Red Dawn, like doom and gloom, big crash situation, you understand that fundamentally that certain people control what goes on. And if they don't like what goes on, they eventually can bring in state agents at some point. If things get, if you don't submit in some way. I know that's a very extreme thing to say, but if you think about it.
No, it's true. That's just like what I said about don't tell me what to do. Oh right. Yeah. And exactly. If you're bringing in, if you have even if it's not the actual physical threat of, the police show up or the military shows up, it's the implied threat that, well, they may not be there, but we could bring them in. We can have guys with guns that can enforce our agenda, that can show up and make your life hell or take you out of the equation. You're absolutely right, TJ. And if you have a total apocalyptic situation, those things go out the window.
Whoever's and now got the gun. Yeah, it's whoever. It's who. You even saw that in Red Dawn. That when the one kid's like, "Well, as the student body president, I say we surrender," and the older kid's like, "Yeah, you're not going anywhere."
Exactly.
and he just tosses him, next to the fire and throws stuff at him and tells him.
Basically tells him, sit down and shut the fuck up. Yeah, exactly. Well, and to go one step darker, TJ, that I'm going to go with, and this is just my own personal view. It's not representative of Masculine Geek. or you guys. But another thing that would be, I guess, good, quote unquote, about some kind of a total apocalyptic societal breakdown is a thinning of the herd.
Yeah.
Okay? A lot of these boy, boy, white knight types, these keyboard warriors, these guys that, oh, I'm going to go out and buy a gun. They're going to end up dead. They're
Yep.
going to end up dead by guys. And I'm not saying it's me, because there's always someone bigger, better, and badder out there. But they're going to end up dead during that big breakdown, because they haven't been trained. They are soft. They're looking to authority to protect them and save them now. And that authority, that blanket of protection is gone. It never really was there to begin with, but it's gone. And now they're going to be facing the savagery of the man who will do whatever it takes to survive. Real quick story. A guy that I used to work with when I was in the armored car industry, we talked about an apocalyptic scenario one day. And he said to me, he goes, what would you want to have in the event of an apocalyptic scenario? What is your one must-have thing? And before I tell you my one thing, I think you guys probably already know, he said, that he would go around and collect up, cans of food and all this different stuff so that he could trade with people with their stuff.
Oh my
and then he
God.
said, what would you have? And I said, oh, I'd only have two things, a gun and bullets.
Yeah.
And he goes, you wouldn't have anything else? And I said, no, because I'd come across a guy like you
And
I
take what I want.
and if you didn't want to give them to me, I would kill you and take them anyway.
Yep.
And he looked at me and he's like, are you serious? And I'm like, as a heart attack, that if that scenario ever showed up, that's all I would really need is a gun and bullets. And then I would find soft guys like you who think somehow that I'm going to want to trade and negotiate, when no, I'm going to maybe let you live if you give me your shit. Otherwise, oh, you're not? Well, boom, you're done. I'll just take your things anyway, and I don't have to worry about you coming back at me.
Yeah,
And that's what I'm saying about thinning the herd. It's like, okay, guys, you're gonna get fucked over if you're not prepared for it.
I think that's another thing that some men find appealing about it, is that it's almost, they understand that everything that goes on now is unnatural. And also it goes back to what I was saying prior to the podcast about just everybody's got to watch what they say. They can't speak their mind, and if they can't even and beyond that, they can't act on it. They can't build anything in their lives because they know that it can be just, I mean, look at some of the stuff we've seen lately. It's very arbitrary and sudden, but they can pretty much destroy your business. They can deplatform you. You do all this stuff, and there's not a lot. And I think the other thing is the hierarchy is being destroyed, in the sense that the people who are in the top of the hierarchy are people who lack any meaningful characteristic. In fact, they're the opposite of the type of men that we would want being. I think that this is another a lot like why a lot of masculine men are turning back to monarchy, or these other types of models. They look at kings or rulers of old, and yeah, maybe some of these rulers weren't the greatest guys morally, but at least they had maybe one or two things. They were consistent, and they were men who you respected because that they would enforce their will in a direct manner. They wouldn't do this passive aggressive, oh, we're gonna look into your tax returns and we're gonna shut you down that way. No, these are guys who say, like Andrew Jackson, you defame me in your newspaper and I'll show up and threaten you with a duel. Like, I can respect a guy who at least acts like that, not a guy who calls up the police and then tries to have them, do a SWAT operation on me. So I think men are almost looking for the natural type law. They want to be governed by a natural law, not by this unnatural order.
Yeah, and to kind of go with that of what you're saying, and Jack Donovan in The Way of Men actually talked about it. He said he had basically kind of two definitions. He said there's a good man, and then there's a man who's good at being a man.
Mm-hmm.
A good man was moral. This is the guy that he has his virtues, his code of honor, and not saying it's not important. But you can be a good man, or you can be good at being a man. And guys, Al Capone would be a good example. He was not necessarily a good man, but he was good at being a man. because he
Yes.
got shit done and he had things handled, but his morality may have been questionable to say the least. And to me, I kind of subscribe to Jack's theory on that. That I look at it and go, yeah, in a perfect world, I want to be both. I want to be good at being a man, and I also want to be a good man. I want to have both. But if I have to choose, if I can only choose one, then I will choose being good at being a man over being a good man any day of the week, hands down. Because if shit hits the fan, using the apocalyptic scenario or anything even remotely close to it, your morality is the first thing that goes out the window. At
There
least
is none.
if you're going to
Yeah.
survive.
There
If
is
you're
none.
going to be a survivor, if you're going to be one that survives and thrives, you've got to learn to let go of your morality and do whatever it takes. And that may mean that you're not going to be a good man, but everyone can say, man, he's good at being a man because he handles this shit. He gets things done. He's got strength. He has his own code of honor, which his code of honor may be whatever it takes so that I come out on top. And if that means I have to burn everyone in the process, so be it.
There's a lot, and then you run into the people that are, the binary thinking, they take it to the extreme. Oh, well, civilization now, it's just we've got computers and cars and salad shooters and vibrators, so we don't have that. We have all these fun that we don't. That's not necessary anymore.
Right.
You don't have, but therein lies the problem. That is more necessary than you think.
Well, all it takes is, and not even on a big apocalyptic scale. I mean, just like the big snowstorm that hit here. If it wasn't men being men and men being good at being men, society here in Salt Lake would have ground to a halt today. There would have been no commerce. There would have been no nothing because the streets would have not have been plowed. There would have been no snow removal because all the guys would have been home, virtue signaling, going, "Wow, someone ought to do something about that snow." And the women are saying, "Yeah, do something about the snow." And the guy goes, "That's right. I'm going to call someone and get them to, hey, where's the snow guy at? Why isn't he here yet to remove the snow? Oh, wait, can't make the phone call because the fucking phone lines went down because everybody's trying to call for the snow removal guy who decided to take the day off, or he doesn't exist anymore because, quote unquote, he's not necessary."
Exactly. Or going back to the very example that you were illustrating with the home invader.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to call the police. Yeah, good luck with that. Well, they'll be there to clean up the mess once it's already over.
That's the problem. It's even not that you want to be getting in fights on the street because it's not like Hollywood, but to be able to defend yourself and your family. Like, oh, someone else will take care of it. The police will take care of it. No, they won't. They'll draw a chalk line around your dead fucking body is what they'll do. The police investigate the crime. They don't prevent it.
Yeah, they pick up the pieces after the fact. They're reactionary. That's just the nature of police work. And so assuming that, I don't need to worry about it, the cops will, I'll call the police. Well, that old cliche, there's never a cop around when you need them. That, it's cliched, but there's truth behind it. It's like, well, yeah, unless that cop just happens to be right there, he pulled up because of whatever reason, it happened at an intersection, you're standing on a corner and some dude assaults you and your woman, and the cop just happened to roll up right then and there. The odds are, nope, they're going to be asking questions. What did the guy look like? Or if you're both dead, which is a very big possibility, they're going to just try to figure out, well, did anyone else see it? We need a description of the suspect. We need to know what we're looking for here, because otherwise all we got is two dead bodies.
Absolutely.
And so, that's part of being good at being a man is I have to be able to protect myself and defend the things and the people that I care about.
Yeah. No, that brings us to an hour and a half. We're doing good. That actually flew by very quickly.
Yeah.
And I want to, I know, right? I want to keep it around this. I think this is a good time, but I don't want to just completely cut off the conversation. I want to go back to the masculine edge and just get you gentlemen, your idea of how to cultivate that. Because someone may still be like, what, how can I do that? I've never done it. That's a lot of people go, well, you know what? That's nice, masculine geeks, but that's not me. That feels fake to me. That's not me. What would you tell them?
Well, I'll start. My and it's obviously your mileage may vary, your results will vary. It's going to be different, a little different anyway for everyone, I think. For me to cultivate my masculine edge, to really get it to where it's at, I had to stop giving a fuck about what other people thought and worrying about, oh, what if I say something that offends somebody? I mean, I watch myself on the job because that's necessary.
Mhm.
But when I'm out and about on my own time, you and I have talked about it a little, Vince, where I just said, I plain don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not worried if I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings. It's not my intention to hurt their feelings, but if it does hurt their feelings, that's on them. They get to own that. That's their problem, not mine. And so I got to a point where instead of worrying about, you know, oh, I might offend this woman or I might upset her, I looked at it as, let's see what happens. You know, what's the worst that can happen? Really, it's like, as long as we're not actually having sex, like if this is a first time meeting, she's not going to scream rape. So it's like, I don't need to worry about that one right now. But what's the worst that can happen? She's going to slap me, tell me get away, whatever. And you know what? No woman has ever done that to me. I've never
No.
been slapped. I've never had a drink thrown in my face. None of those things that, you know, you hear about. It's like, in whose world does that happen? In mine, it's never happened. But
Nah,
I
neither
stopped
mine.
caring about offending and saying the right thing. I
Gotcha.
stopped worrying about being nice. It's like, oh, you're asking me my opinion. Well, I'm going to give it to you, you know, and you may not like it, and that's okay. I don't care. You know, I'm not here for your approval. And so I stopped seeking approval. I stopped caring about offending someone or hurting their feelings. And when it comes to women, it was with the masculine edge there, it was me telling myself it's okay to be sexual. It's okay to show an interest other than just friendly interest. It's okay to kind of look her up and down and go, wow.
Mhm.
And to, you know, to use, God, I hated the TV show Friends. I absolutely hated it because they were all pretty much emasculated guys other than Joey, and he was a dipshit. But Joey had his little line where he'd be like, how you doing? Okay. And all the girls would kind of cream in their pants and giggle and flip their hair and start flirting. But I kind of do something similar to that where it's kind of like, hey, what's up with you? You know, and the girls know what it means. And yeah, is it corny? Yes. Is it cheesy? Yes. Do I get called out on it? Sometimes, yeah. But you know what? It works.
Mhm.
You know, there's definitely a sexual energy when I do something like that. You know, even if they roll their eyes and go, "Oh my God, are you really trying to do the Joey thing?" And it's like, yeah, kinda. You know, it's like, if anything, you should be flattered because I'm interested. And otherwise, if you don't interest me, then guess what? Maybe you're not that interesting.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's the biggest part for the edge to me is just not caring, kind of standing your ground. And if someone pushes, and they will, I've had it happen to me very recently where they pushed and I just kind of stood my ground. And I don't mean a physical push, but you know, they kind of called me out and started trying to use a little bit of shaming tactics and whatnot. And I just stood my ground and just kind of emotionally, mentally, and even verbally just kind of was like, move me, you know, fucking come on, move me, try and move me. It wasn't confrontational or anything, but it's like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not moving.
Yeah.
So if you expect me to give in, no, I'm not going to. So, you know, no apologies. That's a big one too, is I learned to stop saying, sorry.
Exactly.
You know,
Yes.
that is a big one that, I mean,
Unless you've actually really done something that
right,
you
yeah.
need to
If
own.
I've truly harmed someone in some way, or I've truly wronged them, and I know it, yeah, you bet I'll say I'm sorry.
Yeah, but people
But
say sorry way too much
oh
for
yeah, they
things
say
that
it.
they
Well,
don't
I
even
mean,
own.
even you did it earlier, where you're like, you know, I'm sorry about this, you know, and I'm thinking, no, you're not. Why are you saying that? You know, that it's like, stop saying sorry so much, guys.
Exactly.
You know, stop being sorry. You know, usually if I've said or done something that maybe they got a little offended, if I decide I want to maybe smooth it over just a tiny bit, I won't say I'm sorry, but I might go, oh, my bad,
Mhm.
something like that. But I never say sorry. I almost never say it unless it truly warrants it. Otherwise, it's like, oh, you're saying sorry every 5 seconds, you look like, a slug. You're weak sauce. And it's like,
You can
so
say my
stop saying,
apologies, or
yeah,
I
I've
could have
said
said
that
it
too. Yeah.
different.
Oh, my apologies. But typically
Mhm.
I just usually say, oh, my bad, and then I move right on. I don't dwell on it. I just keep right
Right.
on going,
Right.
but it's you just kind of have to not care so much about offending. You stop treating everything with kid gloves, stop walking on eggshells. If you're going to crush some eggshells, and ultimately realize that crushing of the eggshells, unless you're doing it intentionally because you got a chip on your shoulder, otherwise you're going to do it and it's not you, it's them. They're the ones that actually have the problem, and they're the ones that need to deal with it. It's not you, it's them. And so, when you do that, it's like, oh, well, oh, they're thin skinned. They're being a snowflake. All right. Well, I'm moving along now, cause I don't want to deal with that shit,
Absolutely.
and so you move on. And it can be kind of, especially today, it can be seen kind of dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, TJ?
I would reiterate and maybe build on what Rob said. Masculine edge is figuring out what you want and pursuing it, and not really thinking too much about what others think about how or how you're perceived. Now, you obviously don't want to take that too far where you ignore social cues, but understanding when you should not care is very important, because there are times when you should care. If somebody's saying that your behavior or whatever you're doing is not good, and it's based on sound logic and reasoning, then maybe you should listen. But a thing to keep in mind is, but when you're tempted to care too much, remember that your concern is not reciprocated by whoever you're looking at. Meaning, do you really feel like the person you're speaking with or working with or whatever in the context is as concerned about how you feel at that moment, that or if they did something that upset you or whatever? So whether it's with the girl, whether it's with anything else, you gotta, it's almost like part of it is just, if you want to be a man, you gotta fight. There's that great line from the movie Rambo, not Rambo, what am I thinking? Rocky Balboa, that came out in 2006 or whatever, where he's talking to his son. He goes, it's not all sunshine and roses, it's a tough world, and it'll beat you into the ground if you let it, but you got to keep taking the punches and moving forward. You got to, and not complain. And he was giving his son a hard time because his son was saying, I live in your shadow. Everybody thinks of you when they see me. And he goes, you can come up with all these excuses and you can be a loser, or you can just keep moving forward, because that's how winning is done. Cowards just come up with excuses for why they don't get to where they want in life. And, or they're
That's
way
a
too
good
nice.
one. Yeah. Cowards find excuses, and people who ultimately succeed just find a way.
They just do it. They don't talk about it. They just do it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's another thing that frustrates men is we're so action oriented. We want to do stuff. And yet our society mainly revolves around talking about it, because for everything, there's only a pre-selected, pre-approved group of people who are actually allowed to do it. Right? If you want to go do stuff now, like how much stuff is regulated, licensed, controlled, restricted, in all that sense, and it's not just one thing. It builds up to where it feels like you're trying to go through a mire or a swampland, and so the masculine edge gets taken off by that because you get lazy, and so you got to just be constantly honing it in, and understand that you got to fight in this life, because if you don't, I know we keep talking about Jack Donovan, but he made that really great comment. Life is conflict, peace is death. There's, and as another person told me, I see plenty of peace when I go to graveyards. So
that's a good one.
I've seen plenty of peace in graveyards, and that's where peace on this life will be had, is in death. So you got to go out and fight. You don't have to be negative about it, but understand that you are going to have to fight. Life is a contest. It's a competition.
Well, life is conflict, and conflict isn't inherently bad.
Yeah, right.
Well, no, that's why you go to the movies. That's why you read books. That's, there has to be a conflict with the character and the environment, a character and another character. You wouldn't go to the movies or read if there was no conflict.
Right.
That's just that's the way of things.
Right.
Well, I would agree with everything. I would also add, stop asking for permission for things.
Oh yeah,
That
that's
goes.
a big
That
one.
goes. That's, and I hear a lot of guys, like, they're very tentative in their speech. They're not. Their speech is not measured. It's not deliberate. There's no intention behind it. And I'll give an example. Just dating, where you're just, you wanna go out sometime? No, you're asking for you're coming from a very, very weak position. It's not coming from a leadership position. It's not coming from a decision making position. You're not going to be seen as a dominant masculine leader that way. If you say, hey, look, I'm standing over there, I saw you there, you're kind of cute, Thursday, let's go for coffee. There you go. Start. And we actually talked about this, TJ, in Gettysburg. Start making statements.
Yeah, stop asking questions. You can ask questions. I mean, I'm hesitant to give dating advice on this stuff because that is not exactly my area of expertise, especially considering you two gents would probably know more. But I guess I'll put it this way: that is something that I need to work on, is asking less questions and doing more statements, because questions are what you ask on a date or whatever else you're doing. But being more, because there's some areas in my life where I'm very assertive, like almost to a fault. And then there's other areas where I'm not very assertive. And I guess that's where my edge has gotten a little dull.
Gotcha.
Well, and to add on to your, asking, like using the date scenario, probably the worst thing a guy could do, not only is asking, like, do you want to go here? Do you want to go out? That kind of thing. The worst one, even those ones, it's like, don't do that, guys. But even those, if the woman's really receptive, she'll forgive it. The one that will kill it for you every time is if you say, can I kiss you?
Oh yeah, that's bullshit.
That will fucking kill it for you. Whatever chances you may have had, they're gone.
Yeah.
You don't ask a woman, you just say, hey, come here. What?
Yep.
I want to know something. What do you want to know? I want to know what you taste like.
Yeah.
That's what I've done in the past. I never asked. I just went in and did it and figured, well, worst case, she's going to push back. She's going to go, whoa, what are you doing? Or
no,
she might slap me, and again, that never happened. In fact, they all enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's because if you're on a date with a woman already, it's already established the groundwork. Maybe it's not spoken, but by you saying that, you're letting her know. It's like I said before, the woman needs to know that you are interested in her sexually. Now, it may not happen, and that's fine, but you're letting her know, and you're letting her know she's desired, because attention, once again, is coin of the realm in woman land.
Yes,
and that's fine. You're letting her know she is desirable to you, and you want her. And it's like you said, you're not going to get slapped. Now, if you just walk up to a random strange woman and say that, hey, baby, I want to taste you, then probably you're going to.
You can't be binary about it.
Yeah, don't be creepy. Okay, yeah, it's like watch a bunch of movies with Sean Connery and Cary Grant and Gregory Peck.
Now watch a bunch of old movies, where men were men.
Yeah, watch a bunch of those movies. Work on how you approach. John Wayne is actually, if I was going to recommend someone to watch, him, Gregory Peck, and Humphrey Bogart. I mean, like Humphrey Bogart, I've never seen maybe I just haven't seen the film, but most of his films that I've seen, he's always kind of had that no nonsense, I'm in charge of my life type. Don't care what anybody thinks of me.
It's especially zero fucks given,
like Rick from Casablanca. Like that is it. That is it.
Very true. All right, gentlemen, great, good discussion. Good follow up. General advice for honing your masculine edge, getting that sharp, a little at a time. With the whetstone of wisdom and knowledge, you're going to be able to sharpen your masculine edge. That doesn't mean you're going to be a dick, or you're going to be, a mouth breathing idiot, but you're going to, that's going to be the forefront of your interactions with everything, really, not just women, but in business and interactions with your friends and your family. You're setting boundaries. You're learning when to say yes, when to say no, and you're sticking to it. Very good. Excellent talk, gentlemen.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, this has been Masculine Geek number 5. Do you gentlemen want to give your resumes, as it were? Your
You mean we get to plug our shit?
you get
Oh,
plug your shit.
All right. Go ahead, TJ. You do you first.
All right. So you guys can go to tjmartinell.com. That has my links to my podcast and my books. Buy the Stringers, guys. I was talking about it earlier in the podcast.
Yes.
Seriously, get out, get the Kindle version of that, read the book, discover how much of a literary prophet I am, and then you can leave a nice review. And then you can also listen to my weekly podcast, soundcloud.com/tjmartinell.
There you go.
Sweet. And you can find me at robsays.net. That's ROBSAYS.net. And you can also find my podcast on anchor.fm/redpilled.
Excellent. You can find me at vincelarosa.com. Obviously, masculinegeek.com, where we'll be posting more articles, and you'll get the MP3 audio as it comes out. It'll be released. We'll be twatting and tweeting that out. And you can also find me on Amazon, Vincent J. LaRosa. And that will be it, everyone. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining us. And this has been Masculine Geek, episode 5. Have a good night, people.